Welcome to the success stories of millionaires. Can you become a millionaire by following our protagonist's formula? Let's find out. What do you do when you are a 13-year-old with a rebellious streak, sent to a private school by your parents to straighten you out, and you discover a teletype machine that connects to a giant, room-sized computer? If you are Bill Gates, you skip your sports and drama classes, spend every waking moment there, and begin a lifelong conversation with the future. He became the quintessential American geek who rewired the entire world, building a company that placed a computer on every desk and in every home, and in the process, amassed one of the largest fortunes in human history. He did not just see the potential of software. He had the ruthless business acumen to monopolize it, creating an empire that defined the modern digital age. This is the story of William Henry Gates III. But this is not just a tech history lesson. We are going to decode the exact strategic visions, relentless drive, and controversial tactics that allowed him to build Microsoft into a global titan and become one of the richest people on the planet. Stick with me until the end, and I will give you the 5 key strategies Bill Gates used to build his $100 billion empire. Strategies you can use to think bigger and execute with precision in your own ventures. Let us dive into the story of the man who had a computer for a best friend and a world for a market. Before we get into the heart of his story, if you are fascinated by the blueprints behind the world's greatest success stories and the minds of self-made millionaires, you're in the right place. We break down the journeys of the world's most successful entrepreneurs. If that sounds valuable to you, please do us a huge favor. Hit that like button, click subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. Now let's get into how a lakeside schoolboy saw the future and decided to own it. Our story begins in Seattle, Washington, in the 1950s. Bill Gates was born into an upper-middle-class family. His father was a prominent lawyer, and his mother served on the board of directors for several major corporations. He was a voracious reader and intensely competitive, whether at the family card table or in board games like Risk, where he would devise complex strategies for global domination, a chilling foreshadowing of his future business style. The catalyst struck at the private lakeside school. The Mothers Club used proceeds from a rummage sale to buy a teletype terminal and purchase computer time on a General Electric mainframe. For most students, it was a curiosity. For the 13-year-old Gates and his friend Paul Allen, it was a revelation. They became obsessed, skipping classes to live in the computer room, teaching themselves the complex language of machines. They formed the Lakeside Programmers Group and were soon hired to write a payroll program for their school. They even hacked the system to get more free computer time. This was not mischief, it was an apprenticeship. They were learning that code could command machines and that this skill had real-world value. By 1973, Gates was at Harvard University. He was not a dedicated student. He spent most of his time in the computer lab. His old friend Paul Allen, now working outside Boston, would visit him regularly. Then, in January 1975, the cover of Popular Electronics magazine featured the Altair 8800, the world's first commercially successful microcomputer kit. Allen showed the cover to Gates. Both understood the significance immediately. The personal computer had arrived. While others saw a hobbyist's toy, they saw a universe of potential. The hardware was here, but it was useless without software. In a moment of audacious brilliance, they called the company that made the Altair Micro-Instrumentation and Telemetry Systems, or MITS. They claimed to have written a version of the basic programming language for the Altair. It was a bluff. They had not written a single line of code. But the president of MITS was interested. Gates and Allen spent the next 8 weeks in a caffeine-fueled frenzy at Harvard's computer lab, writing the program. Allen flew to New Mexico to demo it. It worked perfectly on the first try. Microsoft, originally Microsoft, was born. Gates, at just 19 years old, dropped out of Harvard to run the company. The decision was not a reckless gamble. It was a calculated bet on a future he saw more clearly than anyone else. The early grind was intense. They moved to New Mexico to work closely with MITS. Gates was the business brain and coding workhorse, a relentless negotiator who understood the legal intricacies of software licensing. He penned the open letter to hobbyists in 1976, angrily condemning the widespread piracy of their software. It was a controversial stance that established a core principle. Software was valuable intellectual property, not a free companion to hardware. The true breakthrough, the moment that would define the company's destiny, came in 1980. International Business Machines, the colossus that dominated the mainframe computer market, was developing its own personal computer. They needed an operating system. Gates, seeing the opportunity of a lifetime, told IBM he had what they needed. In reality, he did not, but he knew a small company in Seattle that had developed an operating system called 86-DOS. Microsoft bought the rights to it for $50,000, then immediately turned around and licensed it to IBM. The deal was a masterstroke of business strategy. Crucially, Gates insisted Microsoft retain the rights to license the system, now called MS-DOS, to other computer manufacturers. This one decision is why Microsoft became an empire. As IBM PC clones flooded the market, every single one of them needed MS-DOS. Microsoft collected a royalty on virtually every personal computer sold in the world. They had become the gatekeeper, the essential toll booth on the digital highway. The hardware companies competed fiercely, driving prices down and volume up, while Microsoft's monopoly on the operating system grew more valuable with every unit sold. The next decade was a relentless march of growth, innovation, and aggressive business tactics. The launch of Windows in 1985 was a graphical revolution, though it was famously buggy at first. But the next masterstroke, the move that would cement Microsoft's absolute dominance in the business world, was just around the corner. While MS-DOS and Windows controlled the computer's brain, Gates knew he needed to control its work. In 1988, Microsoft launched a revolutionary product, Microsoft Office. This was not a single program. It was a suite that bundled Word for document writing, Excel for spreadsheets, and PowerPoint for presentations into one powerful package. This was a genius move. For businesses, it was a one-stop shop. Instead of buying separate programs from different companies that might not work well together, they could get a seamless integrated ecosystem from one vendor. Microsoft used the dominance of Windows to push Office, and the popularity of Office made Windows even more essential. It was a vicious, self-reinforcing cycle that crushed competitors like WordPerfect and Lotus 1-2-3. This is where Gates truly engineered total market captivity. He made Microsoft Office the universal language of business. A resume was expected to be in a doc format. Financial analysis was done in XLS. Company presentations were built in PPT. If you were in business, you had to use Microsoft Office. It became as fundamental as a desk and a chair. This created a powerful structural lock-in. The cost for a business to switch to a competing product, retraining every single employee, converting decades of files, and risking compatibility issues with partners became so astronomically high that it was virtually unthinkable. They were not just using software. They were trapped in an ecosystem they could not afford to leave. But Gates and his successor, Satya Nadella, were not finished. They saw the next wave coming, the cloud. In the early 2010s, they engineered one of the most successful business model pivots in history, the subscription model. They launched Microsoft 365. Instead of selling a one-time software license for a few $100s, they started selling an annual subscription per user. For a business with thousands of employees, This transformed a sporadic, one-time purchase into a predictable, recurring revenue river. The subscription included constant updates, cloud storage, and collaboration tools, making it even more sticky and essential. This move neutralized the threat from free alternatives like Google Docs by offering a more powerful, integrated, and professionally supported ecosystem that businesses were already trained to use. The subscription model locked in customers more tightly than ever and created a financial flywheel that continues to generate billions in predictable revenue every single quarter. The 1990s saw Microsoft at the peak of this power and its most controversial. The U.S. Department of Justice launched a massive antitrust lawsuit against the company, accusing it of illegally leveraging its Windows monopoly to crush competitors, most notably the Netscape web browser. Gates' deposition videos showed a defiant, evasive, and combative executive. The company was eventually found guilty of being a monopoly. The case tarnished his reputation, painting a picture of a ruthless capitalist who would stop at nothing to eliminate any threat to his dominance. Yet through it all, the company's influence was undeniable. By the late 90s, over 90% of the world's personal computers ran on a Microsoft operating system. Gates became the richest man in the world, a title he would hold for many years. His personal wealth skyrocketed into the tens of billions, making him a global symbol of the digital age's unprecedented wealth creation. Then, in a move that shocked the world, he stepped down as CEO of Microsoft in 2000 to focus full-time on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He had begun his second act, not as a tech titan, but as a philanthropist on a scale never before seen. He applied the same data-driven strategic intensity to fighting global diseases like malaria and polio and improving public health and education around the world. He had pledged to give away the vast majority of his wealth, a stark contrast to the monopolist image of his earlier years. Today, the man who once hacked his school's computer for fun is one of the most influential figures of the last century. His journey from code-obsessed teenager to architect of the software industry and then to global philanthropist is a story of relentless vision, controversial tactics, and ultimate redemption. He proved that a single idea, executed with ferocious focus and strategic genius, could change the fabric of society. So what can we learn from the 40-year journey from a Harvard dropout to a $100 billion philanthropist? Here are the 5 key strategies you can emulate from Bill Gates' success. 1. Create an ecosystem. Gates did not just sell a word processor. He sold an integrated suite Office that became the default operating system for business itself. By creating a bundle of products that worked seamlessly together, he made his offering exponentially more valuable and difficult to compete against. The lesson is to think about how your products or services can interconnect to create a self-reinforcing ecosystem that locks in customers. 2. Develop the standard. The most powerful business model is to own the platform, the language, or the system that everyone else must use to interoperate. By controlling the Windows and Office file formats, Doc, XLS, and PPT, Microsoft became the de facto standard. Strive to create the standard in your industry because standards create inertia and immense value. 3. Master recurring revenue. Gates and Microsoft brilliantly pivoted from one-time software sales to the subscription model of Microsoft 365. This transformed their revenue from unpredictable spikes into a massive, predictable, and recurring stream. It also deepened customer relationships. Always look for opportunities to move your business model towards subscriptions or recurring value delivery. 4. Leverage your assets. The IBM deal is a masterclass in leverage. He used IBM's brand and distribution to establish his product, all while retaining the crucial rights to sell it to their competitors. With Office, He leveraged the dominance of Windows to push the suite. Always look for ways to use your current assets to create exponentially more value. 5. Lock your product into workflows. Microsoft Office created the ultimate business advantage, making it too costly and disruptive for customers to leave. By embedding their products into the core workflows of entire industries, they created a situation where switching costs were prohibitive. Your strategy should focus on integrating your product so deeply into your customers' operations that leaving becomes a logistical and financial nightmare, securing your market position for the long term. The strategies Bill Gates utilized are a blueprint for building a business that does not just compete, but defines an era. To execute these strategies, you need the right systems. Whether you sell digital or physical products, most entrepreneurs waste time juggling separate tools for their website, marketing, and sales. The solution is Go High Level, an all-in-one marketing and CRM system that lets you run your entire business, funnels, email, SMS campaigns, AI agents, and social media scheduling. You can even manage your client communication from a single portal on your phone. If you are ready to scale, check out Go High Level. You can find my link for a trial in the description below. The story of Bill Gates proves that the future belongs to those who can see its underlying architecture, that with a combination of visionary foresight, relentless execution, and a willingness to make bold, controversial bets, one person can not only build an empire, but can also redirect the course of global progress. Bill Gates will be remembered for the impact he had on the computing world and how he changed business software forever. If you enjoyed this deep dive and learned something valuable, please watch our next video on the success stories of millionaires.